I've made a full video about this bike, the R1300GS Adventure, for the main Motobob channel, but I don't think we've really spoken about it. And one of the most, let's say, talked about points with regards to this bike has to be the looks. So I wanted to know, what are your first thoughts?
Yeah, you sent me a picture of this one, and I think I gave you my response, which I think it was wow, wow, we were, because I didn't know whether you
Is that
sort of
good or
saying,
bad, though?
yeah, do you know what, it's ambiguous, and I'll leave it at that. It's because I didn't know whether you were sort of like, oh, I really like it, or I don't like it, and then I looked at the pictures a little bit deeper, and I was like, no, he doesn't like that. He can't like that, because that is not a pretty bike. It's a shame too, because actually the regular sort of BMW 1300GS is the new updates they've done for it, I actually think were an upgrade. It does look quite nice, and then to have kind of gone back on that and somehow made it worse, yeah, I'm conflicted.
The new 1300GS was quite controversial when they first announced it, because I think people thought it looked a little bit soft and less kind of masculine, let's say, because they moved away from a lot of like the steel trellis and that sort of blocky aesthetic into something that I think looked a bit more KTM, more dynamic, diagonal, swooping lines, and then it has the cast aluminium subframe to save a bit of weight. So yeah, I think the hardcore existing GS ownership base maybe found it a little bit of a, I don't know, just a big change, let's say. And also, it does look, when you put them side by side, physically smaller than the previous gen 1250. So yeah, it was taking people a little time to get used to, and then they just follow it up. You know, you're thinking 1300GS Adventure will be the same thing, but with just a slightly bigger tank. But they've really gone bold with that tank shape. And it's going to be like another round, I think, of GS fans getting used to the looks of something.
Yeah. It's quite a big shake-up, isn't it, actually? And I don't necessarily understand. So explain to me then, the extra sort of weight on the front of it, right? Does it have a functional purpose, or is it just aesthetics?
It's 30 litres, the tank on the GS Adventure, as opposed to 19 on the standard bike. So if you want to go around the world, or you want to do remote riding, or if you're just someone who likes to tour on their GS, then this is absolutely the one to go for. It does have a little more suspension travel, and it sits a bit taller as well, maybe about 20 mil. So maybe you could argue it might be slightly better off-road as well. But yeah, they sell in equal numbers. The 1250 GS and GS Adventure are the two best-selling large-capacity bikes on the UK market. Quite often two of the best sellers, full stop. And so, yeah, I don't know if it's, partly it's got that specific purpose of like long distance on a tank and more off-road focus. But I'd imagine a lot of people just buy these for general getting around on the road, and they like the image. And of course, the Tiger 1200 Explorers, they come with a 30-litre tank. The Multistrada V4 Rally, that comes with a 30-litre tank. But this has a far more efficient engine, certainly than the Multistrada. And so in terms of distance between stops, the GS Adventure is unrivaled. I can't quite remember. Yeah. I think it's something like 380 miles or over 600 kilometers, something like that. So yeah, but it does look, the tank, I mean, the first thing I thought was that it was like AI generated when I first saw a picture.
That's what you said.
Also, I've got, that cool box, the electric cool box that we had at ABR, my camping cool box, which I love it. It's massive, big blocky thing. The tank on this looks like someone's chopped my cool box in half and glued either half to either side of a 1300 GS.
Yeah. I mean, you can stick your brewskis in there. So, it's your camping buddy. You turn up, you've got all of your barbecue food with you. You've got all of your alcohol with you. So I think they've missed the trick there. They should have kept the tank the same capacity and just made that a cool box on the side.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it? They did argue in the press release that it's somewhat practical because it's so flat on the top. They've put rubber padding. Can you see that in the pictures? There's like a rubber surface on top of those blocky bits on the sides of the tank.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, the black bits, yeah.
They said it's somewhere, to balance stuff or put stuff when you've stopped off. So you can put like your coffee on there or your keys.
Oh my God.
Well, it's keyless.
It comes with a table. So you can...
side tables,
right. Yeah, lovely. So it did make me think, actually, to be fair. I was curious to get your take on it. I wanted to play a little game of higher or lower, because I don't think it's the worst offender, possibly, I mean, in my opinion, but I'll get your opinion as well. So if I send you some photos Inbound.
Yes.
We'll start off quite smooth. And do you know what? In looking through it, I realised there was a little bit of a theme, which I'll start out of the gate, which is that adventure bikes, generally, it's a pretty low bar. So for them to make one, that possibly isn't the best looking adventure bike is saying something. But here we go. Right. So first one, Inbound. Your thoughts? Is it better or worse?
The Harley Davidson Pan America, formerly, I think clearly the sort of what can we say, the gold medal winner of most Marmite adventure motorcycles. Well, I say Marmite because I do think some people really like it. I mean, we saw.
Yeah.
I've got to say, one of the things we said when we were at ABR Festival, Adventure Bike Rider Festival, for anyone who doesn't know of it that's listening, is that we saw a surprising number of Pan Americas, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did actually. And I got to say, I don't know how you feel about it. It's grown on me. I will say that about it. It's not as ugly as I first thought it was.
Agree. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I don't know. Putting them side by side, it makes the Pan America look quite tasteful, and it's just that headlight though on the Pan America. I'm gonna say, what am I saying? Whether the Pan America is better or worse looking than the R1300GS Adventure?
Yeah,
is that the game?
That's the game.
I think when you put them side by side, it's arguably better looking. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say the Pan America just edges it for me, but that might just be time, and it might just be that actually the BMW starts to look a bit better after I've seen it for longer, or until something else comes out that I hate more in terms of looks.
Right.
Just looks, it performs fine. Next on our list then, let me send it, Inbound.
Oh, the original Multistrada.
Yeah, baby.
This is one of those, there's a lot of bikes from this era of Ducati's sort of design language at that time that I think have aged really well. Mm-hmm. This one, it's tough because there are parts of it that I think have still aged well. The tail section looks phenomenal. Steel trellis frame, love that. Even the sort of tank and lower fairing, not that offensive. It's just the upper part of the fairing plonked on top, and the relationship between the upper fairing and lower that I think is, and the stance of it that I think is a little bit weird. But I think, I don't know, mate, that's a very tough one. I'm tabbing between the two. I'm going to say probably the GS is better looking.
Yeah. For me, it's actually an easier answer than that one. Yeah, I would go GS on this one. This is possibly, I'm going to offend some people, I'm sure, one of the ugliest bikes. I've probably played this card a little bit too early because this is one of my least favorite looking bikes ever. I'm sure it rides fantastically, but it's just so discombobulated. Like the head on it just doesn't match the rest of the bike, and then it looks really skinny underneath and stuff. It's just, yeah, not my taste.
It's funny. Do you agree there are parts of it? It has potential. There are parts of it that could be good.
But then that's the thing. It's kind of like they got really good design. It's like one of those drawings, you know, when you fold over a piece of paper. So
what's that
one
called?
designer was drawing the headlight and then folded it over and then handed it to somebody else who drew the frame section, sort of middle section of it, and then somebody else drew the tail section. They went, oh yeah, and then pulled it apart and went, oh my God, what have we made? It kind of looks like that to me, to be honest. Right, next on our list, sending to you now, a little bit different, but what do you think to this one? I will give you, in case you're not familiar, you probably know roughly what it is.
Well, it's some sort of KTM Supermoto.
Yeah, so it's a 690. I don't know what era, actually, to be fair. This is just a list I found online, so this is one of those ones in that list. So yeah,
what,
690.
Ugliest bikes?
Basically looked up ugliest bikes, yeah. I'm not sure I agree with the most ugly, but I'll send it to you in a second. We'll move on to that one. So what do you think of the KTM?
I think that headlight is terrible, but I can see why they went with it. You know, it's trying to give it a bit of that high front mudguard, but then kind of finesse that idea into something that's a bit more KTM and designed, but it hasn't worked because it stands too proud of the rest of the bodywork, I think. Mm-hmm. And the exhaust, it's always good to try something a bit different, but it looks pretty bad as well to me.
It looks like it's broken its back a little bit, doesn't it, for me? Like it's slumped in the middle somehow.
I think that's worse. I'm going to say that's worse than the GS.
Yeah, good.
My official technique is having them open in two tabs in my browser.
It's good.
And then using the keyboard to quickly switch between. And then which one hurts my eyes the most? Probably that KTM out of those two.
That's fair. All right, so the BMW's not doing too badly so far. Right, let's move on to what they voted was the ugliest.
Oh, that's unfair. Ooh, is it unfair? I can't make my mind up on that, mate. I think that possibly is unfair, although there are certain things on that bike.
So this, in case you're not familiar, is I'm sure you are, but it's a Bimota Tessie 3D. But this is a cafe racer version of it, so they do make a different version of it. It's actually the fared version that they were saying was the ugliest. What's your opinion?
Yeah.
Start flipping between them.
I mean, one of the weird things about the Naked Cafe Racer is just the kind of lack of forks, I suppose, or a fork rather, because there's sort of a gap at the front wheel, which I think makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And the fared version kind of fills that in a little bit with the fairing, so it's less unconventional. But the Cafe Racer, I'd say it's better looking than the GS. Okay. It just takes a little while to stop looking at, but I don't mind that. I actually like that Cafe Racer version. And I think that I agree it's harsh. Yeah. Especially, is that all of the list?
No, I just picked there was a little bit more to the list, but these are the ones, like you say, some of them were not so sort of ugly, they were kind of mild, so I thought I'd go with the most extreme versions, but I have my favourite, which I'll send to you in a second.
Well, here's mine, BMW 650 Scarva. What a horrible looking bike. No?
It looks like it's been designed by someone who's just given up hope on life, a little bit. They're just, that'll do. Get out of my office. That's ugly. Oh, mate, from the side, even worse. That is pretty bad. Yeah, okay.
Horrible.
Again, the R1300 is looking better to me. Let me send you my least favourite. And I will caveat this by saying I was genuinely contemplating buying one of these at some point. So here we go.
What on earth is that, mate? Oh, that's a Moto. Is that a Moto Morini?
That is a Moto Morini Gran Passo. It's got the same 1200 engine that is featured in a lot of their bikes, which means that it will be a fun bike. Yeah, big V-twin. A really fun bike to ride because that engine is brilliant. It is quite unique as well, actually. But can you get over the fact that just look at the face on that thing? I'll send you a few more clips.
You know what this makes me think? A lot of people don't like the idea of stacked LED projectors. But you've got to have two projectors, haven't you? Because one is kind of full beam and one is regular. Mm-hmm. And this, I think, is proof that actually it's better to stack those two projectors than it is to stick them either side of the beak. Because that's the only alternative.
I feel like you're speaking specifically to me, who does not like vertical stacks on most of the bikes.
Well, this is the alternative, mate.
Take a look at the alternative. Do you still think it's better? Okay. I see your point on it. I don't know. It's the fact that they've separated it so much with that big beak on the front of it. It's got such a fat nose. It's not a looker though, is it? That is a face only a mother could love.
I agree that I'd be interested to ride that. I do think on paper it sounds fun, but I will say that is definitely worse than the R1300GS Adventure. Anyway, moving on. Thank you very much for that quiz, Tim. What I thought I'd do also is rattle through some of the comments on the main channel video to give a little bit of a flavour of how the general motorcycling public has received the new 1300GS Adventure. So it's a real journey, mate. Honestly, there's all sorts in here. Ritter13 says, the off-road photocopier, which I think is probably fair. And also Peter Ferguson 7679 says, it looks like a toaster. And I have a 1250 and a V4 Multistrada, so why would I want to buy the toaster? Arguably accurate, I would say, both of those. It is a little bit blocky. DRS Nervoso says, though, after the reveal last Friday, I bought one of the last new 1250 GS Adventures. I guess because he just hates how it looks. So it could be enough to put some people off buying it. User Ol6RD7PL5T said, it's been a long wait, but at least now I've seen it, I can cross it off my wish list. But, Tim, I think you alluded to the idea that sometimes these designs mature well and settle in and then they don't look so bad. And we've got quite a few comments along that theme. So Lacey _68 said, I hated it at first. Now I love it. It looks incredible in the flesh. And Aisa says, being honest, on first viewing, I had to keep from losing my lunch. A few days later, it's not that bad. Which I think is kind of how I'm feeling. It's definitely aging better. Yeah. But there's even comments like this, Tim. Nighthawk the Flying Spur, brilliant username, says best looking adventure bike, and there were actually quite a few that said they thought it looked phenomenal and they love it, and it's kind of original and also looks very I guess the antidote to the R1300GS, which people thought looked a bit small and soft. This looks big and blocky and rugged and aggressive, and so people are into that.